Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are EBS, your experienced technology partner, and we've been in business for over 45 years. We specialize in the deployment of Sage business management and Microsoft solutions, managed services, and secure on-premises and cloud-based infrastructure. My name is Darren Tolley, and I am one of the account managers here at EBS. Today, we are joined by Sicon, who we've partnered with for many, many years. Sicon are a Sage tech partner and provide a wide range of innovative solutions for Sage 200. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Chris Donlan, who will give us an overview of some more of the modules from Sicon's distribution portfolio. We ran a webinar last month where we featured MRP. So take a look at that if you'd like to see that too. So we'll be looking at container management and pre-allocations today. And if we've got time, we'll also look at warehouse replenishment. These are all fully immersed within the Sage 200 professional desktop. We are recording today's presentation and we'll make this available to you in the next few days. There are lots of recordings on our YouTube channel. Remember to hit subscribe to receive notifications when we load new videos. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or there will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation in the Q&A session. So that's enough for me, and without further ado, I will pass you over to Chris. Morning, Chris.
Hello, Darren. Nice to be here with you again, and welcome to everybody that's on the call with us this morning. Just for clarity's sake, my role here at Sicon is a partner account manager, and I'm directly responsible for the relationship between ourselves and the team at EBS. And for those of you who don't fully appreciate the way we operate, Sicon do develop a lot of product. Just going to highlight that here. You'll be pleased to know we're just focusing, as Darren says, on 3 of those elements. But we don't sell any of our products directly to yourselves as prospective end users, and this is why we prefer to work through our connection with our partners, because they look after your Sage 200 system. They provide you with all the resource in terms of backup, help, training, and so on, and they will do exactly the same thing for anything that you might like to invest into from the Sicon portfolio that you're looking at with me right now. So that keeps that support relationship with yourselves and EBS nice and tight. There's no ambiguity. Do you ring us? Do you ring EBS? Just go straight to EBS for everything you might need. So within this headline here of Sicon distribution, there are, if I pop onto the help and user guide, there are a number of elements here. Okay, you don't buy into everything, you just buy into the element that you think is going to be of help to you in what you want to achieve. So as has been mentioned, we're going to have a look at container management. We're going to be looking at pre-allocations and warehouse replenishment. Just as a thought, if there are people on the call or maybe that are looking to buy into our barcoding solution, please just be aware that warehouse replenishment is a feature within the barcoding module. Okay, so you wouldn't need to buy it from the distribution portfolio because we've actually built it in to the warehouse menu. Okay, just as a sudden thought occurred to me there. But when you want to learn a little bit more about any of these modules, then just click on to the module in question. This will open up a link to the help and user guide, and this will literally tell you chapter and verse about how it works, how you set it up, how you use it, probably in far greater depth than I can hope to cover in a short webinar session, the likes of what we're undertaking today. So do feel free, it's sicon.co.uk, don't need to register, it's a public facing site, and you are free to go and have a look around that to suit yourselves. So let's get into my Sage demo system. What I've done this morning, by the way, just to save a little bit of time, I've actually set some demo data up along the lines of the products that we're looking at. Okay, so let's hop on to, let's do pre-allocations, I think, first of all. Let's take a quick look at that. So the idea of pre-allocations, quite straightforward. You get a sales order in, or a bunch of sales orders in from a customer, and you've not got enough stock, let's say, to fulfill your obligation to them. So you would raise a purchase order on your supplier for probably a larger volume of stock, and you wait for that to come in, okay, and then you're in a position to fulfill the sales orders. But the great thing about pre-allocation is you can actually already connect those sales orders to the purchase order that you have raised, so that when you receipt the goods into stock from that purchase order, the system is already aware of how much of that intake it needs to ring fence to go to your sales orders, and it will automatically allocate the stock that those sales orders are waiting for. Okay, so then your pick, pack and dispatch process can then be immediately get underway. Okay, so you don't need to remember to do that. The system's going to do that for you. So let's just take a look at what that looks like in reality. So just going to pop onto my sales orders, my list view here, so I can show you one, as I say, that I've set up. So what I did here was I put this sales order onto my Sage system, and it's just an imaginary order, as you might imagine with Asda. I'm going to sell them 10 toasters. Okay, now just so I have the stock, but just to make it possible for me to generate a pre-allocation connection, I just said there wasn't any available, so I didn't allow the system to allocate any stock. So I've got 10 of them in. Okay. And I know, okay, that if I just go into edit, just to show you what the connection looks like, and what you'll see when you buy into Sicon products that have a relationship to one or more areas of the Sage system is that we often add specific menu items. I won't go into these because they relate to other areas, but sometimes we add on a little area here, look, and this tells me that this is already connected to a pre-allocation, and that pre-allocation, I'll just make that screen a bit bigger so you can see it, is connected to a purchase order, and the purchase order that it's connected to is 4055, and it's literally for the same quantity. But if that purchase order was for a much bigger number of toasters, okay, then as those toasters arrive, as I said earlier, into stock on the back of that purchase order, then this sales order will automatically get its share of that PO quantity. So I know I can now ship sales order 5694. Okay. And you can connect as many different sales orders to a single PO as you like. Okay. You can also, of course, edit that relationship. Okay, so if I suddenly change my mind, if I think, no, I don't want that to be a part of it, or I want to step the quantity up. So Asda came back to me and said, actually, I know we ordered 10, but I now want 20. So when you have them in stock and you ship 20, I can easily make that modification. Okay, so as long as there's enough in the purchase order receipt quantity for me to be able to do that, then I'll be able to follow that through. Okay, and you can do it either way. You can sort of create the purchase order first, then link the sales orders to it. You can put the sales orders on, you know that they're not allocated, and then you might change your mind and think, Alan, let's link it back to the purchase order. So it's very flexible. Okay, and you've also got a pre-allocation dashboard, which I'll just bring up here. So these are, as you can see, lots of other purchase orders with their connected sales orders here. Okay, and there's the line I was just showing you a moment ago. So as I say, this can all be found, of course, from within the distribution menu, and you can also, by the way, which is quite a neat thing, you can also, if you've got sales orders that are sitting there and you haven't bought pre-allocation yet, you can ask us to look at outstanding sales orders and then start connecting them to purchase orders, and that's what that option there does. Okay, so you don't have to necessarily go through them. The system will just bring them up onto a screen, and you can say, yeah, let's connect these two sides of the equation together. So that's a bit about pre-allocation. As I say, quite a nifty little module in its own right. Let's move on.
Sorry,
yes,
Chris, before we move on, then let's deal with that.
Go ahead.
That
why not?
Query.
Yeah.
So John asks, can you pre-allocate to add to a fixed date in the future?
So the fixed date in the future.
Well, let's ask John just to unmute and just say,
why not?
Do you want
John,
to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, that might be an idea. You there, John?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just still unmuting.
That's okay.
Basically, we allocate jobs in chunks, let's say, of 2 weeks ahead.
Okay.
So I've got no problem in pre-allocating up to 1 to 2 weeks ahead for orders coming in, because I think that would be a real advantage to us. But I don't want to allocate for contracts that are in our system for sort of 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks time.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, John. Never had it sort of.
It's not an auto allocation, is it? So it only auto allocates when the goods come in, basically. So you choose which
that's
orders you actually.
That's right.
You actually want to pre-allocate.
That's a point, actually, Darren, because even though you've got a link, maybe, okay, as I said earlier on, you can change the link, John, so you don't have to link it to the purchase order. It could be something that you put the sales order on, you don't have any allocation in the sales order, but neither are you linking it to a pre-allocation. You could link it later. Okay, so just leave the sales order on the system in its unallocated state, give it some future date as to when you're due to dispatch. So let's say from where we are today, 20th of February, you want to dispatch it in back end of March. Okay, then look at what your incoming purchase orders look like closer to that time, then link the sales order to them.
Okay.
Good way of doing it. So you're not obligated to make the link, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
But you can go at it backwards as well, can't you? You can go to the PO and actually allocate the sales orders to the purchase orders. You can the other way around.
Yeah, and that might be an even better way of thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, is that all right?
Makes sense.
Cool.
That's how we do it at the minute. So that's good. So.
Okay, excellent. Anyway, good question. Keep them coming, John. Okay, let's have a look at what Container Manager is all about now. I'm just going to pop onto my container management list. So this journey, starts with you defining what a container is. Now, the one I'm going to use for today's example is this one here. So we're just going to open it up just so you can see what I've already put into it. Okay, so I'm imagining that we're buying some stock in from China. It doesn't necessarily need to be that far away. And on my tracking information, I said, the tracking profile for this container, which I've just called a Merc 1234, is a dispatch from China. I've identified the name of the vessel that the container will be placed on. And if I wanted to, even ahead of that, I could even elect to say which freight forwarder is going to bring that container to me once it arrives in, say, Tilbury or something. I can also control or indicate if I've forwarded the relevant documents to or sent the documents to the forwarder, we're in a position to proceed, etc. These all have an impact on various different statistics and reports, as you might imagine, and alerts, so you can make sure that you're following through with the progress of the track at the right pace at the right time. I also create a number of different tracking descriptions, and you can have you're in charge. It's a blank canvas, which is great. So you call it what you want and you define what the various different stages of that track look like. So for the example that you can see on the screen here, we've said that loading onto that vessel takes 5 days. Okay, the ship is at sea for near as damn it a fortnight. It takes 3 days once it's been landed to clear customs, and then it takes a further 2 days for the forwarder to deliver it to me at my warehouse. Okay. Now, at any point along that journey, okay, if the provisional earmark changes, okay, and by the way, you can see here I can classify this as working days or do they work weekends, or and I imagine they probably would, especially if they're in a ship for a couple of weeks. But if you make any changes to the provisional timings, okay, that will automatically update all your purchase orders, okay, which we'll take a look at a bit closer in a second, but all your purchase orders that are sitting inside that container, okay, it will increase the date when you will finally get a hold of them because there's been a delay. So let's say the sea, the trip at the sea, they have to pull into a port somewhere along the way because they've had an engine failure or a problem. So you will find out how long that's going to take to address. That's going to impact on when you finally take delivery of your purchases. So, and you can record the problem as I've just been describing in here, okay, and add some notes for your own information just by populating them in the box down here below. Okay, you can put attachments to things, so these could be contracts, images, pictures, whatever. You can also put in memos, etc. Ignore the references over here to CRM. It's not for today's discussion, but if you did have our Sicon CRM system, just so as you know, you might want to assign tasks or cases to people to follow up. Okay, so maybe you need to ring the customer. Please ring customers, let them know there's a delay in us getting their goods to them because it's been held up in transit. So as I say, what I've got here is you can see 2 different purchase orders. Ignore the fact that they're sequential. It was just me rushing them on this morning for today's session. But basically, I've described what it is that those purchase orders are all about, what the quantities are, etc. Okay, and I can add and change the relationship between these purchase orders, so I can remove the container line. I can add more lines. Okay, so when I put my purchase order on Sage earlier today, let's pop back into here. Look, that's better. Okay, so Kingstar was who I was buying these things from. So let's have a look at this one here. So when we look at the item or items in the PO, then you can see here, look, we've added an extra field into the standard Sage screen, which allows me to connect this stock item to my preferred container. Okay, and you can perhaps appreciate I can move that around as well. So what you're doing is you're grouping contents of a PO into that container, and you can put as many POs onto it as clearly you need to be aware as to how much can be fitted onto that container. I often get asked about, well, the loading capacity by weight and volume. Okay, now it's not an exact science. Okay, you can define the size of the container, 20 foot, 40 foot, whatever that looks like. You can also tell us what the cubic capacity is of the container. Okay, if you want to. What that would enable us to do is if you've got those items in, those data points in your stock records. Okay, so if you're going to tell us how much they weigh, okay, if you want to tell us what their sizing is, then we should be in a position to give you a rough outline as to how much you could possibly fit in that container. Okay, it may be that this whole arrangement comes down to the person who's shipping them to you. So in my case, this outfit called Kingstar. So they might tell you which container they're putting it on. Okay, so maybe you don't allocate the POs to the relevant container until you know what the shipping plan looks like. Okay, they can, if they want to, also split the PO. So out of the 100 items here, these thermostat units, they might say, oh, we're going to put 50 into this container and we're going to put 50 into another. Okay, and that may mean that those containers ship on different dates. This is all doable. Okay, so we have got the capacity to allow for that kind of change, okay, or differential. That might be a better choice of word. So you can manage the PO deliveries in sections, okay, especially if they're going into different containers. So as I say, in a sense, it's really then just tracking or updating the system as to when you have achieved on the tracking route, when you've achieved the milestones that we talked about. So it's been loaded, yep, done. It's now at sea. 2 weeks later, yep, done. It's arrived at the port. So you're constantly updating the status of the progress of the container until eventually it reaches you. Okay. Now, I made a reference earlier to barcoding, and I can do the same thing here. Containers not in barcoding, but what the guys on the barcoding module can do is that they can receive the container. Okay, and what happens there is they open up container number 10 in my case, okay, and it will list for them all the POs that should be in that container per the quantities that you knew were shipped in that container. So then they can start receipting the PO lines, but they'll have everything in one single view. So they won't need to go into each purchase order one at a time, as you're probably doing in other kinds of deliveries. They can look at the whole content. Okay, so for me, keeping away from barcoding, if I was to go into receive containers, okay, then the minute I tick container number 10, that should be what I should see in that container. So I can then start recording the quantities that I've received, and I can receive then the entire container. Okay, so it's just a really neat trackable way of grouping lots of purchase orders together, applying it over a defined delivery schedule, okay, and then bringing them into stock. But as I say, the neat thing is that if I knew there was 10, 20, 30, 40 purchase orders in a container, and I suddenly find out that that container shipment's been delayed, all I need to do is to change the anticipated delivery date of the container, and all the purchase orders that you see on the screen there will have their delivery dates updated. And dare I say it, you could also ask the pre-allocation to change the relationship to the sales order. So now, if you wanted, you could update the anticipated delivery of those sales orders. Okay, so that these modules will work with each other, but you can use them in isolation. Okay. Don't know if anybody's on the call wants to ask me anything more about that. John, I know you asked me earlier something about pre-allocation, but again, does that make sense? Is that what you were hoping it would do? If anybody wants to ask me anything further? Failing that, all clear, perfect, good. Thanks, John. Yeah, I mean, it may be that we get towards the end of this little session and someone will come up with some further thoughts, but that's pretty much what it does. And I know it's in some instances quite a complex kind of process that happens, and I'm probably simplifying it a little bit, but ideally, in the case of managing the data, then by keeping it simple, it makes it easier for you to approach and deal with. Okay, excellent. Right, okay, so let's go into warehouse replan and have a look at this. So I've got a warehouse management dashboard. Let's have a quick look at that. Okay. Never judge me on the quality of my demo data. It's going to be absolutely terrible. But that's just giving me, at a click of a key, just a live stock awareness as to what's happening, when, where's it going, what's not been dispatched, what's been put on that's new, that's not been processed, and so on. But there are a number of different approaches to the way we handle this. So if I look at stock shortage transfers for a second. So if you have transfers that you're waiting to initiate, okay, and I think I prepared one a little bit earlier. There we go. So I've got an EBS demo example. So let's have a look at that transfer, just so as you know what it is. And we give each of these transfers their own internal reference number, okay? So it's neither a sales order or a purchase order. It's your stock. You're just moving it. In my case, I'm moving it to a different area, perhaps in the same building. I could, of course, be moving it to a completely different geographical location. So it might be a zone or an area, or it could be something physical. But what I've basically said is, look, I need to move some stuff. Okay, I can choose my options that best define how this is meant to work. I could deliver it directly to the customer. That's a warehouse transfer. Maybe it's a consignment warehouse. Okay, so that'd be quite nice. Okay, but for me, I just said, look, let's just do delivery directly into that warehouse. Which warehouse is it going into? For me, my choice was factory. Okay, when do I want that to take place? Okay, and I can also add some notes. You'll notice here I've got a link here to courier. Now, if you buy into our courier integration module, then you could package up a pallet, okay, of items that you wish to have transferred, and we can then raise a consignment request to your preferred courier, DPD, FedEx, Royal Mail, okay, and their driver arrives at warehouse. They have a consignment note manifest, say they know how many pallets or boxes they're picking up, okay. The courier system will print off all the outward facing carton labels for you on a thermal printer. So the guy gets off his van, he goes bip, bip, bip with his gun, loads them onto his van, takes them back to their processing center for ongoing dispatch, okay. But it's only there for me because of course I've got all the Sicon products switched on. So that's the delivery address, as you can see, for the factory. So it is definitely a physical geographical move. But basically just add into here what it is you actually want to transfer, okay, and define which warehouse it's going to. We can go from bin to bin, okay. On this occasion, I've just chosen a general goods in area at the factory. So as long as someone is acknowledging they're taking delivery of it, then where they put it, okay, is down to them. They might do a put away process. You know, again, for those of you on barcoding, that's just an option on the handheld for you to be able to say, yep, taken delivery of the stuff. I'm now going to move it from my general receipt location, and I'm going to then put it away in the right rack in the right position. You can print picking lists, okay? So if that was a multiple line replen request, then I can print the picking list so that if you haven't got a barcoding system, the guys can walk around with a printed sheet saying, yeah, picking 10 of them, 3 of those, 4 of those, and they put it all onto the pallet and then make the pallet available to be dispatched. So what we're doing here is we're taking the stuff out of stock, okay, out of your warehouse bin B1, as you can see on the screen, and we move it to what we call an internal transfer area, okay. So it's still your stock, okay, but you're just moving it into an interim place, okay, and then the guys on the other side, okay, they hop on, they say, I'm in the factory, okay, so I'm now receiving that stock, and what they're doing is they're receiving it from the internal transfer area. So it's not directly from warehouse to them, it needs to go through a transit position, especially if it's geographical, because you probably put it on the back of a lorry. So they can then receive it from the internal transfer, and then they can, in my case, they're going to receive it into goods in. Okay, so different people can engage with that process. Okay, and again, neatly here, look, we've got a link to pre-allocation. So again, as I say, all these modules, they'll have little nuances, and if anyone's waiting for those thermostat units to actually arrive into the factory, okay, then again, the system can say, yeah, got some sales orders waiting for this, so we can update it just on them doing an internal warehouse to warehouse transfer. Okay, so again, as I say, it doesn't have to be anything to do with a PO relationship. It can just be something internal. So quite nice little nuances there that we can fit in. You can schedule these, you can put them on priority, do this one first, then do this one, then do this one. So just a simple numerical priority system. Here's where I dispatch. So I print my picking list, the guys go and get all the stuff, then they dispatch it. So that's how we move it into the internal transfer area. Then the other guys on the other side can say when they've received it. One person can do the whole thing, of course. They'll just probably get on the phone and say, have you had the stuff yet? Yeah, okay, in which case I'll do a receipt and I know it's into the factory. If you've done transfers like this before, then go back and copy one. Okay, you can always look back over your history of transfers. You can also make transfer templates. So if you know you are regularly moving a whole batch of stock, monthly, quarterly, whatever that looks like, then just build up a template and add to that template if you need to. So it will save you having to build it from scratch. Then you can look at things like stock replenishment. So that was a kind of a shortage transfer. So if I say, okay, let's have a look at, actually, I won't do a specific one. Let's do a source warehouse. Let's have a look at, I don't know what that came up for. Let's do a warehouse. So show me the shortages that may exist between the warehouse. Let me just make that bigger for you. So show me the shortages that I need to address, okay, between the warehouse and the factory. Okay, so here what the system's looking at is you might have set minimums, okay, on your stock items, and where we sense that the stock is dropping below those minimums, then that's going to flag up effectively a shortage request. So instead of you looking through all your stock records manually one at a time, you can get this immediate assessment and then build a transfer. So it's not being designed on the basis of what you yourself want to move. It's actually more a question of demand. So that's might be very helpful for some people because it just is a very, very quick way of them. You might not actually be able to facilitate the transfer, of course. So in some cases, there's not enough, as you can see here, for me to even consider moving. Okay, so I might need to buy some more stock. Okay, so this again might trigger you needing to raise purchase orders. And for those of you that might have been on a previous call that Darren and I had, this is where potentially material planning, of course, can come in. So what material planning does is it says you're running low in your warehouse on certain levels of stock that it knows you move and sell and supply quite a lot of. So it can make recommendations for you to raise purchase orders to those suppliers for this range of items that it's now short of, and it will generate those purchase orders. It'll actually fire them out, okay, by email if needs be, on the basis of you saying, yeah, go ahead, generate the purchase orders. So you don't even have to put those in yourself. The system will generate those purchase orders. Okay, but this is quite a nifty screen to, as I say, look at to get that heads up to make those decisions or make those choices. This last one here, small item batches, this realistically is where you want to write stuff off. Okay, so you're not writing off masses. It's just a question of saying, okay, I've got where I need to write that. Buying the low level stock, we're not selling any of it. Might as well just write it off. Okay, so it's more a question of looking at the levels of stock and just determining on the basis of no volume, not selling anything, get rid of it. But the whole warehouse replen, as I say, just as a reminder, that is something that's in barcoding for those people who either have it that are on the call or might be thinking about using it. So don't buy it twice. And that's warehouse replenishment. So again, just going to pause for a second just to invite anybody on the call if they wish to unmute or put something in the chat if you want to do that now. But as I say, another reminder while we're waiting for that, do please feel free to pop onto the Sicon website, have a look around at those particular modules that you might have interest in. If there's no more queries or requests for information, I'm going to pause there, defer back to Darren at EBS to close off. But for myself, thank you very much indeed for your time to go through those things with me today.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Chris. Thanks for running through that. If you want more details or like a one-to-one so we can step into anything, as I say, in more detail, then just drop your account manager a line, which may be myself, of course, and we can set that up for you. Remember to go and have a look at our YouTube channel, because there are lots and lots of videos on there that you may also find useful. And we're doing probably a webinar at least once a month, sometimes twice. So yeah, there is good information there. Thanks for attending. We do appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye, everybody.